The basketball world is in absolute shock right now after a massive revelation dropped, a revelation that could completely change how fans view the WNBPA's relationship with Caitlin Clark. According to her own agent, the Players Association didn't just criticize her, didn't just distance themselves from her, they allegedly tried to cash in on her name, her fame, and her generational star power, all while pretending they were protecting the league. And the wildest part? Her agent just exposed everything. This wasn't a rumor. This wasn't fan speculation. This wasn't a TikTok conspiracy. This was a straight-up bombshell coming from inside Caitlin's own camp, a camp that's been quiet, strategic, and extremely calculated, until now. Insiders claim the WNBPA saw Caitlin's rising popularity, her skyrocketing endorsements, her historic viewership numbers, and immediately tried to position themselves to profit, not collaborate, not support, but profit, even after certain players were throwing shade publicly and privately. But the moment her agent spoke, everything flipped. Sources say receipts were shown. Conversations were exposed. Screenshots were hinted at. And suddenly, the entire narrative surrounding Caitlin Clark, the favoritism claims, the jealousy, the media tension, the locker room politics, all of it looks very different now. Because according to her agent, this wasn't about equality. This wasn't about fairness. This wasn't about protecting the league. This was about money. And more specifically, about leveraging Caitlin Clark's global popularity to funnel revenue back to people who weren't supporting her publicly, while trying to control her behind the scenes. And now the whole world is asking, if her agent exposed this, then what else was going on behind closed doors? Long before the public ever heard her agent speak, long before social media ignited, long before this scandal turned the basketball world upside down, the tension between the rising superstar Caitlin Clark and the Women's National Basketball Players Association, WNBPA, had already been simmering behind closed doors. To casual fans, everything looked fine. Exciting, even. Caitlin was breaking records, filling arenas, boosting ratings, and dragging the entire sport into a new era of visibility. Brands wanted her. Networks wanted her. The numbers she brought in were unlike anything the league had seen in years. But behind the scenes, there was discomfort. There was resentment. There was panic. Because Caitlin wasn't just a star. She was a phenomenon, and phenomena disrupt systems. Insiders say the WNBPA had been watching her rise closely the moment she began bulldozing college viewership records. The association understood exactly what she represented: power, influence, and financial gravity the league had never had before. When she entered the WNBA, she didn't just join a league, she shifted its entire economic landscape. And for some people who were used to controlling the landscape, that shift was terrifying. At first, the tension was light. Subtle comments from players. Snide remarks from media personalities. Passive-aggressive posts. Claims about favoritism. Whispers that she was being pushed too fast, given too much attention, or not respecting the veterans. The WNBPA publicly framed these moments as healthy discussions about league culture. But privately, it was fracturing. Because while a handful of players were criticizing Caitlin, the WNBPA was, according to her agent, attempting something very different behind the scenes. They were trying to insert themselves into her financial orbit. The first signs were seemingly innocent. A request for collaborative opportunities. A suggestion to align her marketing with league initiatives. Then came the quiet pressure to participate in certain campaigns, meetings, and brand pushes that, again, according to her agent, would allow the Players Association to indirectly profit from her exploding fame. Her agent initially brushed it off. Until the requests became demands. And the demands became strategy. And the strategy became something much darker. A coordinated internal effort to capitalize on Caitlin's global rise, even while certain union voices were publicly painting her as privileged, overhyped, or divisive. Fans didn't know this, of course. The world thought that Caitlin Clark tension was just competitive energy. But the truth, insiders say, ran much deeper. It started with Caitlyn's first major endorsement negotiations. While brands were lining up with historic offers, the WNBPA allegedly approached her team suggesting that a percentage of certain revenue streams should benefit everyone, not just Caitlyn. Her agent refused. Politely at first. Then sharply. Because Caitlyn, despite the criticism from certain players, earned every deal through unprecedented performance and popularity. She wasn't obligated to give a cut to people who weren't supporting her. But the moment her agent pushed back, things shifted. Suddenly the public criticisms became louder. Suddenly the narrative around Caitlyn became more hostile. Suddenly every small mistake she made was amplified. Suddenly commentary about league respect and earning stripes flooded the media. And while all that chaos was exploding online, the WNBPA, behind the scenes, kept pushing. According to her agent, the Players Association attempted to tie Caitlyn to certain revenue projects, merchandising plans, and league-wide initiatives that would have allowed the WNBPA to profit from her likeness without properly compensating her team. One insider described it as, they wanted her to carry the league financially, but without giving her the power she deserved. Another said, they saw dollar signs and panicked. They wanted in before the brands locked her down. And then came the moment her agent decided enough was enough. The breaking point. A private meeting, one that was supposed to stay confidential, where WNBPA representatives allegedly attempted to propose a structure that would unify earnings from Caitlyn's upcoming sponsorship wave. Not collaborate. Not partnership. Unify earnings. Meaning, Caitlyn makes the money, the association shares the profit. Her agent walked out. People in the room say the tension was so thick you could feel it in the walls. Raised voices. Frozen stares. One WNBPA rep allegedly said, if she's going to benefit from the league should benefit from her. Her agent's response? She is the reason the league is benefiting. But what made this entire situation explode was what happened next. The WNBPA, instead of addressing things privately, began subtly fueling the public narrative that Caitlyn was being protected, favored, or given unfair advantages. The same narrative her critics had been trying to push online. Her agent stayed silent. Until now. Because after months of sitting back, observing, collecting receipts, and waiting for the right moment, he finally went public, not in anger, but in confidence. He exposed the truth. He explained exactly how the WNBPA attempted to cash in on Caitlyn's rise. He hinted at emails. He hinted at meeting notes. He hinted at messages. He hinted at a pattern of behavior that showed the WNBPA didn't want to support her, they wanted to control her. And for the first time since this entire saga began, fans understood what Caitlyn had been dealing with. A superstar carrying a league. And an association trying to ride her success like a wave. But here's the real twist. What her agent revealed publicly. Insiders say he held back the worst part. The moment Caitlyn Clark's agent hinted that he had held back the worst part, the entire basketball world went silent, a heavy, suffocating silence that made everyone realize this situation was bigger, uglier, and far more calculated than anyone outside the inner circle had imagined. His tone wasn't angry. It wasn't bitter. It wasn't defensive. It was measured, the kind of tone someone uses when they know they are holding cards that could burn an entire organization to ash if they felt like playing them. And that's when insiders began leaking whispers of the real conflict. The WNBPA didn't just want money from Caitlyn's success. They wanted control over the machine she was becoming. For months, her popularity had grown at an uncontrollable pace. She wasn't just a star, she was transforming into a brand, a demographic magnet, a licensing powerhouse. When she stepped onto the court, attendance doubled. When she played televised games, ratings tripled. When her merchandise dropped, websites crashed. But Caitlyn's rise created a massive problem for the WNBPA. She was becoming bigger than the league, and bigger than them. This wasn't just about money. This was about power. Visibility. Influence. The WNBPA had never dealt with a player whose popularity dwarfed the association itself, and insiders say some leaders began warning others. If we don't get ahead of her, she's going to become the face of the league without us. Translation. If Caitlin Clark becomes her own brand, the WNBPA loses leverage. So they devised a strategy, a quiet, subtle plan disguised as collaboration, league alignment, and player support. Her agent called it something different. A coordinated attempt to absorb Caitlin's influence into the association before she realized her full power. At first, they tried soft tactics. Invitations disguised as obligations. PR requests framed as unity. Proposals for joint marketing. Talks of collective representation. But the moment her team saw the underlying patterns, they shut it down. And that's when everything escalated from passive to aggressive. The first sign of open conflict came during a private off-season summit attended by top league figures and WNBPA representatives. Caitlin was not present. Her agent was not invited. But her name? Her name dominated the entire room. According to an insider who secretly recorded fragments of the meeting, one WNBPA member reportedly said, "If she keeps ascending this fast without our involvement, we lose our bargaining power." Another replied, "Then we need to make her need us." That one sentence set off alarms inside her camp when they learned of it later. Make her need us? How do you make a superstar depend on an organization? You control their narrative. You influence their public perception. You shape their storyline. You ensure that no matter how big they get, they cannot operate without you. Insiders claim this is when the shift began, the shift that the public felt but couldn't explain. Suddenly, Caitlin became the target of criticism from certain players. Suddenly, talk of privilege and special treatment began surfacing. Suddenly, she was framed as a divisive figure rather than a unifying superstar. Suddenly, every little moment she had on the court became a headline. What fans thought were organic opinions now looked like coordinated messaging. But the twist, the true twist, is what happened next. Someone leaked a screenshot. A screenshot of an internal WNBPA messaging channel. A screenshot containing a message from a senior representative. A screenshot that read, "We need to capitalize on her momentum. Even if she's not aligned with us yet." Aligned. The word aligned became the moment her agent realized exactly what was happening. They didn't want to support her. They wanted to own her narrative, her image, her influence, and yes, her revenue. But the real explosion happened when her agent exposed the moment that crossed the line. A meeting. A private dinner. A conversation he wasn't supposed to hear. According to him, a high-ranking WNBPA figure approached a corporate partner that was negotiating with Caitlin and suggested, without her consent, that the association should receive a portion of her upcoming endorsement package in exchange for league harmony. League harmony. As if Caitlin Clark's brand should be taxed to maintain peace. Fans didn't know any of this. But her agent wasn't done. He then revealed something far more damning. After Caitlin's camp rejected the revenue arrangement, certain WNBPA voices began quietly encouraging players to speak up about Caitlin's popularity, framing it as a cultural conversation instead of what it really was. A strategic attempt to apply pressure until Caitlin's team cooperated. This wasn't tension. This wasn't rivalry. This was leverage. The plan was clear. If the public believed Caitlin was being pushed unfairly, they'd question her fame. If players publicly questioned her, sponsors would hesitate. If sponsors hesitated, her agent would be forced to negotiate with the WNBPA for smoother branding opportunities. That was the strategy. Until Caitlin's agent discovered the big secret. A WNBPA proposal, drafted but not finalized, outlining a plan to introduce a league star representation fee. A fee that would require megastars like Caitlin to contribute a percentage of their off-court revenue to the association. In exchange for what? Visibility distribution. Brand equalization. League representation. In other words, if Caitlin succeeds, everyone gets paid, whether they supported her or not. That document leaked to her agent through an anonymous staffer, someone who felt the plan was unethical and predatory. And her agent kept the screenshot. When he confronted WNBPA leadership privately, chaos erupted. Raised voices, finger-pointing, insults, accusations. At one point, a representative allegedly said, "She can't run the league by herself." Her agent fired back, "She already is." This argument became the catalyst that set off the first major twist. A secret recording. Someone recorded the meeting. Someone shared it. Someone sent it, not to the media, but to Caitlin's agent. In the recording, a WNBPA voice said, "We need to slow her down before she gets too big. Otherwise, she'll never listen to us. Slow her down. Slow her down." When Caitlin's agent heard that sentence, insiders say he almost walked straight into a press conference that very moment. Because that was the moment he realized. This was never about unity. Never about fairness. Never about representation. This was about control. About keeping Caitlin Clark in a box small enough for the WNBPA to manage. Even if it meant dulling her shine, redirecting her opportunities, or weaponizing public sentiment to pressure her team. And now, with the recordings in hand, her agent knows he holds the most nuclear evidence in the entire situation. Evidence that could destroy trust. Evidence that could fracture the Players Association. Evidence that, if released, would make fans question everything the WNBPA has said or done regarding Caitlin Clark. But this isn't even the shocking reveal. Because what her agent just exposed publicly. Insiders claim it's only phase 1. The real bombshell, the one that will shake the entire sports world, is still hidden. The moment insiders whispered that everything her agent exposed was only phase 1, the energy around the league shifted instantly. The WNBPA expected backlash, sure, but they never expected detonation. They weren't prepared for the avalanche of receipts her agent hinted at. They weren't prepared for the anonymous leaks pouring out of their own organization. And they definitely weren't prepared for how quickly the public began connecting dots the WNBPA had spent months trying to scatter. Because when fans get even a hint that a superstar was being controlled, manipulated, or financially targeted behind the scenes, the internet becomes a microscope, and the WNBPA suddenly found itself trapped beneath the lens. And then the shocker hit. Caitlin Clark's agent didn't just have screenshots. He had recordings. Recordings of backroom conversations. Recordings of negotiations. Recordings of moments that were never supposed to leak. Recordings that exposed the WNBPA's true strategy, and even worse, their true fears. One insider leaked one line that sent the entire sports world into meltdown. They said she was becoming too powerful too fast. Too powerful. Too powerful. A 22-year-old rookie becoming too influential for the Players Association? That alone was a scandal. But then came the twist that flipped everything. There was a secret meeting, a meeting Caitlin Clark didn't know about, a meeting her agent wasn't allowed into, a meeting the WNBPA now wishes had never happened. According to multiple sources, the WNBPA leadership met privately with high-ranking league officials to discuss what they called the Caitlin Clark problem. Not opportunity. Not growth. Not expansion. Problem. And here's where the shock becomes nuclear. In the meeting, someone reportedly said, "If she becomes bigger than the league, we lose our ability to negotiate." There it was. The real fear. The real motive. The real reason they wanted to slow her down. Caitlin's rise was so historic, so fast, so seismic that it threatened the association's leverage in future bargaining negotiations. If one player, ONE, becomes the financial engine of the league, then her interests start to outweigh the collective. The WNBPA didn't want to lose control. So some members decided Caitlin Clark needed to be contained. And that's when phase 2 of their strategy began. Her agent hinted at this but didn't say it outright. The WNBPA tried to engineer the narrative around Caitlin Clark. How? By letting certain players, the outspoken ones, be the messengers. Criticisms weren't random. Shade wasn't spontaneous. Interviews weren't accidental. According to a leaked internal memo, some representatives believed that peer pressure would force Caitlin's camp to align with WNBPA interests. But when that didn't work, when Caitlin didn't bend, when her popularity skyrocketed even higher despite the public negativity, the WNBPA allegedly tried something far more disturbing. They attempted to interfere with a major sponsorship negotiation. This sponsorship was huge, a multi-million-dollar deal that would have solidified Caitlin as the face of a global brand. The brand reached out to the WNBA for guidance. Somewhere along the chain, according to an insider, a WNBPA representative inserted themselves where they didn't belong. Someone allegedly told the brand, "You might want to reconsider going all in with her so soon. It could cause friction within the league." Friction. Friction that they were creating. When her agent learned this, it was the moment the gloves came off. Because this wasn't politics anymore. This wasn't internal tension. This was sabotage. He confronted WNBPA leadership in a call that has now become legendary behind closed doors. An anonymous staffer who overheard the confrontation said it went like this. "Agent, did you tell a sponsor she might hurt the league dynamic?" WNBPA rep, "We want what's best for the league." Agent, "No. You wanted what's best for your leverage." The call reportedly ended with a chilling line from her agent. "Stop playing games with her career. I have every receipt." And then came the first shocking reveal. Her agent wasn't bluffing. Someone, a silent ally inside the WNBPA, had been feeding him everything. Emails, meeting notes, recordings, draft proposals, Slack messages, private conversations. Why? Because not everyone inside the WNBPA agreed with the leadership's tactics. Some players love Caitlin. Some staffers believe she's the league's future. Some representatives felt uncomfortable watching power become manipulation. One insider leaked this bomb. They underestimated how many people were on Caitlin's side. And that's when the second shocking reveal detonated. One of the leaked recordings captured a WNBPA official admitting that attacking Caitlin publicly helps level the attention. Level the attention. Meaning, if Caitlin shines too bright, others get overshadowed. So instead of celebrating her rise, some wanted to dim it. But nothing prepared the world for the third shocking reveal. A document leaked titled Influence Balance Strategy, Q1 Proposal. Inside were action points. Reframe narratives. Balance media distribution. Discourage disproportionate stardom. Promote collective visibility over individual dominance. Monitor fan response to celebrity imbalance. But the final bullet point shattered the internet. Identify pressure points for alignment. Pressure points? For a 22-year-old? A rookie? Fans lost it. The media exploded. Sports analysts called it the biggest scandal in WNBA union history. And then the final twist of this section erupted. Her agent revealed that one of Caitlin's closest potential allies, someone she respected, was approached by WNBPA representatives to guide her decisions in a direction that aligned with the association's goals. In other words, they tried to plant someone in her inner circle. Someone to influence her. Someone to steer her. Someone to make sure she didn't become too independent. When Caitlin's agent discovered this infiltration attempt, that was the moment he decided to go public. And he hasn't even revealed the biggest receipt yet. Because insiders say there's one recording, one conversation, one moment so explosive the WNBPA is terrified it will surface. A recording that contains the real reason they tried to control Caitlyn. A reason so shocking it will rewrite the entire narrative. The moment insiders revealed that the WNBPA tried to plant someone inside Caitlyn Clark's inner circle, that a guiding voice was supposed to steer her decisions in the union's direction, the entire internet erupted like a volcano. What was already a heated debate suddenly transformed into a full-scale war. Fans didn't just react, they mobilized. Overnight, this became the biggest online meltdown the WNBA had seen in years. Across TikTok, thousands of videos appeared within hours, each with titles like, "They tried to control Caitlyn. Is this why players attacked her? WNB just got exposed, this is crazy. Her agent warned us, now it all makes sense." Creators were dissecting every leaked message, every rumor, every subtle jab players had thrown at her over the season. People started pulling up old interviews, slowing down clips, analyzing facial expressions, and pointing out the exact moments where Caitlyn suddenly became the target of league tension. One fan said what everyone was thinking. They didn't want her to grow. They wanted her to grow on their terms. And that comment amassed hundreds of thousands of likes. But social media wasn't just reacting. It was dividing. Hard. On one side were the fans, millions of them, furious at the idea that their favorite player had been strategically suppressed. They flooded timelines with, "Protect Caitlyn. Expose the WNBPA. Superstars shouldn't be punished for being superstars. Why sabotage the only person boosting the league?" But the other side, supporters of the union, pushed back fiercely. Some claimed Caitlyn got too much too fast. Others insisted this was all misinformation. And a few went as far as saying her agent was overreacting. Except, the receipts said otherwise. And then the celebrities got involved. A former NBA champion posted on X, "If half these leaks are true, somebody in the WNBPA needs to be fired." A retired WNBA legend tweeted, "Trying to dim a star never works. It only makes your league look insecure." An ESPN analyst, clearly fed up, said live on air, "You asked for growth. Caitlyn gave you growth. Then you punished her for it." Clips of that line went instantly viral. Even musicians and influencers who don't follow basketball chimed in because the story was too dramatic to ignore. A famous pop singer tweeted, "Imagine sabotaging the person bringing attention to your organization." But the most shocking celebrity reaction came from someone unexpected, a globally known athlete outside the basketball world, who commented, "Let her be great. Stop trying to own her." That statement alone drove the internet into a frenzy. Meanwhile, inside the league, chaos was brewing. Players began unfollowing each other. Agents started calling media outlets privately. PR departments went into blackout mode. Some players tried distancing themselves from the WNBPA leadership with vague statements like, "We all want what's best for the league. The situation is complicated. I support women's basketball, period." Notice what was missing. No one defended the WNBPA directly. Because behind the scenes, the fear was real. Insiders claimed the WNBPA leadership held an emergency Zoom meeting the moment the infiltration allegation went viral. One source said the call was tense, voices were raised, and at one point a rep said, "We can't let that recording come out. If it does, we're finished." And that statement leaked. Fans went ballistic. What recording? What else did they say? What are they hiding? Drop the tapes. Caitlyn's fans didn't let up. They began trending hashtags like #release the receipts, #stop sabotaging Caitlyn, #WNBPA exposed, #protect Caitlyn Clark. On TikTok, one video amassed over 4 million views in hours, showing side-by-side clips of players criticizing Caitlyn contrasted with leaked lines from internal WNBPA messages. The caption read, "They weren't mad at her. They were scared of her." And that narrative? It spread like wildfire. The sports media universe wasn't quiet either. One outlet published an article titled, "Is Caitlin Clark too big for the WNBA?" Another countered with, "The WNBPA miscalculated the Caitlin Clark era badly." And then, as if the drama needed gasoline, a well-known insider dropped this. The recording her agent hasn't released yet. It names a specific person inside the WNBPA who admitted their goal wasn't protecting the league, it was protecting their position. That one line alone sparked thousands of threads analyzing which WNBPA figure had the most to lose. People began posting lists, ranking potential suspects. Old quotes resurfaced. Past interviews were reviewed frame by frame like crime footage. Fan detectives were in full investigation mode. And while the internet was dragging the WNBPA through digital flames, something else, something far more dangerous, was happening. Sponsors were watching. Brands that had partnered with the WNBA reached out privately, wanting clarity. Companies asked whether Caitlin was being mistreated internally. Executives wondered if this scandal would affect public trust. One source inside a major sponsorship company said, "This is the kind of drama that forces corporations to re-evaluate their entire relationship with a league." Meanwhile, Caitlin Clark stayed silent. Not a word. Not a post. Not a reaction. Which only made tensions climb higher. Her silence was seen as power, as confirmation that her agent wasn't bluffing, that the leaks were real, that the WNBPA was exactly as scared as the public suspected. But then the real explosion hit. A sports journalist claimed on live TV, "I've spoken to someone who heard the unreleased recording. The reason the WNBPA wanted to slow her down, it wasn't insecurity. It wasn't jealousy. It was strategy, cold, calculated strategy." The studio fell silent. Fans lost their minds. If sabotage wasn't personal, if it wasn't emotional, if it wasn't accidental, then what was it? What was in that recording? What was the real motive? Why was Caitlin Clark being slowed down? And WHO ordered it. The world is now demanding answers. The sports world thought it had seen everything, the leaks, the screenshots, the secret strategies, the attempted infiltration of Caitlin Clark's inner circle, but all of that was nothing compared to the recording her agent still hasn't released. The one that insiders keep whispering about. The one the WNBPA is desperately praying never sees the light of day. Because according to multiple sources, that recording doesn't just expose the association's strategy. It exposes their endgame. Up until now, fans believed the WNBPA was trying to profit off Caitlin's fame. Others believed it was jealousy, old guard resentment, or a generational clash. But the truth, the real truth, is darker, colder, and far more calculated. They didn't want to slow her down. They wanted to OWN the rise they knew was unavoidable. And that is where the recording flips everything. Insiders say it takes place on a conference call, not a meeting, not a hallway whisper, not an offhand comment. A full, organized call with multiple WNBPA leaders discussing Caitlin's rise. The moment that blew everyone's mind? A voice, confirmed by those who heard it, saying, "We can't stop her. But we can position ourselves to benefit from her before she realizes how big she's going to get." And then another voice responds, "She'll only have real power if we let her have it. If she stays independent, she becomes bigger than all of us." That sentence alone would have set the internet on fire. But the recording didn't stop there. What came next was the moment that, if released, could end careers. A third voice, calm, strategic, almost rehearsed, says, "Once she hits the national peak, we need to make sure the league and the association are tied directly to her image. If she becomes bigger than the league, our influence collapses. We attach early, or we lose everything. Attach early. Attach to Caitlin Clark, not to support her, not to advocate for her, but to guarantee that her success couldn't exist without the WNBPA claiming part of it." In other words, if they couldn't stop her rise, they wanted to be written into her legacy by force. And then came the line that made even the insider league shake when they repeated it. If she doesn't align willingly, then we use peer leverage until she does. Peer leverage. Suddenly everything made sense. The criticism. The media attention. The shady commentary. The subtle jabs. The earning stripes narrative. The veterans suddenly speaking about respect. It wasn't random. It wasn't emotional. It wasn't organic. It was peer leverage, a pressure tactic. But the twist wasn't that the WNBPA planned this. The twist was why they thought it was necessary. According to the final section of the recording, a high-ranking voice explained. The moment she becomes the most important figure in the sport, and she will, bargaining power shifts. Sponsors won't listen to us. They'll listen to her. Sponsors, listening to Caitlin Clark instead of the WNBPA. That was the real fear. If Caitlin controlled the money, she controlled the league. If she controlled the league, she controlled the future. If she controlled the future, the association's power became optional. And for an organization built on negotiating leverage, becoming optional is death. But the true final twist, the moment that freezes every room where the recording has been played, comes at the end, when someone asks, "What if she doesn't align at all?" There's a pause. And then a voice answers. Then we manufacture tension until she realizes she needs us. Manufacture. Tension. Those two words changed everything. Fans had believed the tension around Caitlin was natural. Analysts thought it came from competition. Commentators assumed it was rookie-veteran dynamics. But no. Someone planned it. Someone greenlit it. Someone executed it. And someone on that call admitted it. That is why the WNBPA is terrified. That is why her agent keeps smiling like he's holding a nuke. That is why players have gone silent. That is why the leaks won't stop. Manufactured tension isn't just unethical, it's a scandal that could implode the entire structure of the league. And now everyone wants the tape. Fans are demanding it. Journalists are chasing it. Sponsors are asking questions. Former players are whispering privately. This is the biggest mistake the WNBPA has ever made. And Caitlin Clark? Still silent. Still unbothered. Still ascending. Still breaking records. Which makes the WNBPA panic even more, because if she's becoming unstoppable without them, what happens when she finally speaks? And here's the cliffhanger. Insiders say Caitlin's agent is preparing a public statement. Not a leak. Not a hint. Not a subtle jab. A full statement addressing the situation, and possibly dropping the recording if the WNBPA tries to deny anything. One source described it like this. If he releases that tape, the league changes forever. Another said. They are not afraid of the truth coming out. They are afraid everyone will realize Caitlin never needed them. And the scariest rumor? Caitlin herself may know everything, and is simply waiting for the perfect moment to respond. The world is watching. The sponsors are watching. The WNBPA is trembling. Because once her agent speaks, once the tape leaks, once the truth becomes impossible to deny, women's basketball will never look the same again. And now the entire sports world is holding its breath, waiting for the one move that could flip the WNBA, the WNBPA, and Caitlin Clark's entire legacy on its head, the release of the recording that could expose exactly who tried to control her, who plotted against her rise, and who was willing to manufacture tension just to keep their power from slipping away. One file. One leak. One moment, and the truth becomes undeniable. This is no longer about rumors. No longer about speculation. No longer about locker room dynamics. This is about a young superstar standing at the center of a storm she never asked for, a storm built around control, influence, and fear. A storm created by people who realized they couldn't stop her greatness, so they tried to attach themselves to it. But here's the question you need to answer. What happens when Caitlin finally speaks? What happens if that recording drops? What happens if the WNBPA is forced to face the world with no place to hide? Do you think her agent should release the tape immediately? Or wait until the WNBPA responds publicly? Should Caitlyn break her silence and expose everything? Or let the truth destroy itself while she keeps rising untouched? Your voice matters. Comment below and tell us your theory, because this isn't just a story, this is a battle for the future of the league. And fans are now part of the conversation whether the WNBPA likes it or not. If you're Team Caitlyn, hit that like button and push this story into the algorithm so the truth can't be buried. If you want the full recording exposed, smash subscribe and ring the notifications, because the next chapter of this saga could drop at any moment. And trust me, when that tape goes public, when the voices are heard, when the motives are revealed, when the strategy is exposed, women's basketball will never be the same again. Stay locked in. The next update is coming.